Have you ever seen an odd-looking car that made you scratch your head? You'd be surprised to hear about how many companies have tried to make weird cars. Luckily, most of them stay as concept cars, but some seem to have gotten past government rules and are now driving around. And these were made by well-known companies like Ford and General Motors. This video will discuss some of the most bizarre cars ever made. First off, the 1909 Ford Model T. One of the most well-known cars in history might seem like an odd choice, but hear us out. Henry Ford was a pretty eccentric guy, and his first mass-produced car was just as strange as he was. He was a minimalist. That could explain why he didn't think his Model T needed front brakes, shock absorbers, a water pump, or even a driver's door. In 1911, Charles Kettering invented the electric starter, changing how people drove, but Ford didn't start offering them until 1919. Even then, they were only an option. Even the three pedals aren't what they seem. The left pedal changes gear forward, the middle pedal changes gear backwards, and the right pedal stops the car. Where's the gas pedal? Of course, on the steering column. Even though there were a lot of changes in the car industry, Ford kept making the Model T for almost 20 years. Then he finally gave in to his son and sales staff and made the Model A, which was more modern. Up next, the 1956 BMW Isetta. Yes, we know it looks like a bug on wheels without a head, or a bug with a door, like a refrigerator. When it came out in 1955, the Isetta was the strangest car ever. Let's forget about the egg-shaped and bubble-shaped windows and focus on how easy it is to get inside. The whole front of the car was a door, and yes, the dashboard and steering wheel opened as well. In the case of a crash, in which the people inside would likely be crushed, the only way out would be through the canvas roof. Everything about this car was strange. Still, the bubble car caused a stir and was the best-selling model, with more than 161,000 sold. The most you can pay for a fully restored Isetta is $40,000, followed by the 1993 Dymaxion. Buckminster Fuller made up the word Dymaxion and came up with a Dymaxion house, a Dymaxion map, and even a Dymaxion sleep schedule. Oh, and a Dymaxion car. Fuller wanted this weird three-wheeler to be the basis for a vehicle that could go on land, sea, and air. Given how bad the car drove on the road, we'd hate to see it fly. The Dymaxion was built backward. It had a Ford V8 engine in the back, which drove the front wheels, and a single rear tire that turned the car. Because of this, it had a tiny turning circle and was hard to control. One of the three Dymaxion was destroyed, another was thrown away, and the third was used as a chicken coop before it was fixed. Since then, credible copies have been made, but we should all still be glad that the future of the car wasn't this pretty strange. Moving on to the 1914 Anderson Detroit Electric Model 90. Even if you don't like backseat drivers, they were needed in the Anderson Detroit Electric, which is driven from the back seat. At a time when gasoline cars were dirty, hand-cranked beasts, battery-powered electrics like the Model 90 were the clear choice of upper-class city women. They drove it with a pair of tillers while sitting on the comfortable couch in Detroit's back seat. Yes, there was a front seat, and it could turn around to face the back, so people could talk while driving. Sounds like trouble? If you think about how the speed limit in cities at the time was around 10 miles per hour, the Detroit Electric could barely go 25 miles per hour. It wasn't that dangerous to talk to other people. Anderson did make Detroit Electric cars where the driver sat in the front, but it was still possible to drive from the back seat well into the 1930s. Next, the 1953 Firebird 1 XP21. The design was pretty cool, at least to kids. If not, the style wasn't helpful. The jet fighter on wheels had a canopy that looked like a bubble and a cockpit with only one seat. If the front of the car was the hood, it looked like a giant bullet on wheels, and the exhaust pipes looked like an airplane's engine. There was too much weirdness, and the people who took over were no better. Luckily, they were all just ideas. General Motors began looking into gas turbine engines in the 1940s. This led to Firebird 1. By the beginning of the 1950s, the engines were being made, and GM put the first one into the Firebird 1. It had 300 170 horsepower. The top speed of the Firebird was supposed to be 200 miles per hour, but when the test driver changed gears at 100 miles per hour, the tires lost grip. It was said that the successors could go up to 200 miles per hour. Not to mention the 1955 Citroën DS. The Goddess is best known for her unique looks and self-leveling suspension, but not everyone knows how complicated, or maybe we should say how French, the DS is. It's because of the hydro-pneumatic suspension, which isn't just a suspension. It has a high-pressure hydraulic system that controls the steering, semi-automatic transmission, clutch, and brakes. All of these parts work together to make driving easier. Isn't that cool? Yes, until it breaks, which happens more often in Britain than in France. Do experienced DS drivers know that if the steering gets heavy and the transmission starts to lag, it's time to pull over because the brakes are about to fail? The car's strange hydro-pneumatic system was used in several modes until 2017. It got more than 700 orders in the first 15 minutes after its debut, and more than 12,000 by the end of the day. The futuristic design turned out to be both timeless and profitable. It kept making the car, which is now a true classic, until 1975. And like Jules Verne's best books, the DS is still important, but more as an idea than a model. Let's learn more about the 1956 Fiat 600 Multipla. We love to use the word minivan a lot, but what exactly is a minivan? When you're talking about the cute Fiat 600 Multipla, that's when. From 1956 to 1965, Fiat made the Multipla, based on the frame of the 600. The 600 was a spiritual follow-up to the original 500 platforms. Fiat executives bet that Europe would want cheap, simple cars, but people wanted versions with a little more space, so the Mini Multipla was made. The 600's trunk was in the front because its tiny 0.6-liter 4-cylinder engine was in the back. That is until someone at Fiat came up with a better idea. Why not let people use that space? It could fit 6 people as long as they didn't need too much space. The 600 Multipla had the same 21 horsepower engine as the regular 600. The Multipla couldn't go from 0 to 60 miles per hour because it could only go as fast as 57 miles per hour. The British car magazine Motor timed it going from 0 to 50 in a painful 43 seconds. Fiat made this strange little people carrier for more than a decade, which is hard to believe. Coming up, the 1961 Amphicar. The Amphicar was a mix of a car and a boat that wasn't as good as a car or a boat. It wouldn't be a list of weird cars without it. This twin screw rig got its name because buyers got ripped off on the car and the boat they bought. It was a distant relative of the German Army's VW Schwimmwagen from World War II, and it was powered by a rear-mounted 1.2-liter Triumph engine that made only 43 horsepower. On the water, it could only go about 7 miles per hour. It took about 40 seconds to get up to 60 miles per hour on land and could go as fast as 70. The front wheels were used to steer the car on land and in water, and it's up for debate where they were less effective. It stopped being made in 1963, but cars were still made from leftover parts until 1965. It took 3 more years to sell off the rest of the stock. Finally, the 1968 Oldsmobile/American Quality Coach Jetway 707. How do we get to the airport? Is one of the most important questions people have to answer. In the 1960s and 70s, the answer was often an airport limousine, usually a stretched-out station wagon. But making an Olds Toronado go faster, GM's personal luxury sports coupe, in 1968, that was like making an airport limo out of a Lexus LC. We think we understand what it means. Since the Toro had front-wheel drive, using it as a starting point for a limousine meant that we didn't need an extended drive shaft to send power to the back wheels. Instead, American Quality Coach only had to design new front doors, a new Vista roof, and a new station wagon body. But wait, there's more. Add a tailgate, side windows, and a new suspension and braking system for the new third axle. But hey, at least no new drive shaft. We think that made the job a lot easier. And on that note, that's a wrap for this video. Which of these cars was the most bizarre for you? Would you buy them? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.